Hello and welcome everyone. Good to see you. Hope you're doing well. Hope everyone had a great weekend. I'm Sam Peterson. I am your host today, and I'm here with Natalie of Threeologie. Natalie, how you doing?
Hi, I'm doing good. How about yourself?
I'm doing good. Thanks for joining us. Before
Thank
we get
you.
started today, I just wanted to give a couple announcements. If you're not aware, we have the Photoshop Daily Creative Challenge going on with Paul Tranny. That was actually the stream right before us. That's every day, Monday through Friday, starting at 9 o'clock Pacific time. So definitely check that out. We have challenges and a community Discord you can join to share, get feedback, all that good stuff. Also, if you're watching over on YouTube, you can join us here on Behance. This is where Natalie will be able to see your comments and questions, and you can get feedback on that as well. And I just want to say hi to everyone in the chat. Good to see you. I see Robert, Annika, Steve, our mod Wadecuff, Umacorn, General Kenobi. Good to see everyone. Welcome on in. So Natalie, thanks again for joining us. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you're going to be working on today?
Yeah, so my name's Natalie, and I am a lettering artist based in Los Angeles. I've been lettering for about 6 years now. And, my projects are always so different. Whenever I talk about my projects, they range from all types of things to like lettering for the front of newspapers or lettering for murals, lettering for brands and doing collaborations. So it always varies from project to project. And I wanted to share with you guys one of my favorite projects I did this year. This is my website. And so I sell courses, digital products, that sort of thing. But inside of my website, there is my portfolio section. So if you go to the top, Sam, and then click on portfolio, you'll find like a list of my projects that I've done. I'm really horrible at updating it, but I just finally updated it a little bit. I still need to finish doing that. But if you see the second one, that was the second one on the top. That is a big mural project I did this year for the Fab Fit Fun office in Hollywood. It took me about a week to complete all of the murals. So that was a super, super fun project, just kind of like working with the interior designer of the space to really mesh with the brand, creating like murals that go well with the brand. And plus it's kind of my style already. So that was a really, really fun project this year.
Yeah, that's great. Like it looks like you did multiple parts of that building, which is kind of an interesting way to have to approach it.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a lot of work. I was super tired after that, but it was really, really
Yeah, I
fun.
bet.
And for today, what I'm gonna do is because it's we're getting close to the holidays and Christmas is coming up. I wanted to work on a holiday greeting card with you guys and also create an e-card. So essentially we're going to create a holiday e-card that you can send via email to your friends and family or maybe your clients. For me, I think the clients is the big one because it's kind of like a little reminder to tell them like, hey, I'm still here. Like, you can hire me for other projects, just like a little reminder. And then we're also going to change that and make it into a photo card. So, those cards that you get in the mail with like the family photo. If you want to send it to your friends and family, maybe you can add a family photo into the card as well. But today we're going to be focusing on actually designing the card and then putting it all together. And then tomorrow we'll focus on really making a photo card.
Excellent. That sounds good. And you're going to be working in Adobe Fresco today.
Yes, I'm going to be working in Adobe Fresco.
Very cool.
Okay, so I'm going to get started. And if you guys have any questions, feel free to ask along the way. Feel free to interrupt me. That's definitely okay. So I have Adobe Fresco opened up on my iPad. And for this card, I wanted to do a 1350 by 1080 pixel size. So I already have it saved, but if you want to click on custom size, we can add it that way as well. I will just go over here to the pixels and click 1350. And then put 1080 as the height. And then I can just create document. And so it should look something like this. And whenever I'm designing, I like to make sure that my grid is turned on. So I will go to the grid, the little grid icon here, and I will turn on my grid. And then I will change the sizing of my spacing of the squares to, let's say, 25 so that they're smaller. I just find it's easier to create the letters having a smaller grid. And for this card, I was trying to think of something that could be more general in terms of like what the greeting is on top of the card. And I figured not something super Christmassy because, you know, some people celebrate Hanukkah and maybe people don't celebrate Christmas. So I was thinking seasons, greetings from blah, blah, blah. So the whole point is to kind of create this fun little message that you can apply or attach to an email. And then at the bottom, say from Natalie or from the Browns, things like that. So I always use the pencil brush in Procreate. So if you go down to if you go to the top here and click on pixel brushes and go all the way down to sketching, I normally just use the regular pencil and I'll just grab that one. And this one's at about a 6 pixel size. And then what I'm going to do next is, so my message is season's greetings. So I'm going to write season's greetings here.
That's the same pencil I think I use a lot in Procreate. I like the texture of that one for sure.
Yeah, I feel like I hardly ever use any of the other brushes.
Yeah, when I first used Fresco, that was actually, I think, something that stood out to me. Like, sketching is so much fun on the iPad.
Yeah.
And when I found that brush, I was like, this actually feels a lot like, it's the closest I had to, you know, the sketchbook experience digitally. So
Yes, and I love working in the sketchbook too. I love like lettering on paper. So for me, it's like I love having like that pencil feel all the time.
do you do primarily one over the other? I noticed on your Instagram, there's a lot of sketchbook stuff as well as digital stuff. Is it kind of 50-50?
So I would say it's mostly 50-50. Most of my projects are not sketchbook, but I would say that I try to really work in my sketchbook because I feel like it helps me be a better lettering artist. It kind of forces me because there's been so many times when I've done projects where I have to like freehand something and it really works in my favor at those moments. So I always say, like, I definitely recommend practicing on paper because those things pop up sometimes.
Yeah, it's definitely something I want to do, but I always find it hard to find time for it. But it's kind of a different experience, so it is a lot of fun.
Yeah, definitely. So
Also,
oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say we had a couple comments for you in chat. Robert says, love your lettering, Natalie. And Laura says, loving the positive vibe of all your projects.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. So just to kind of go into like the layout, I'm very kind of like, whenever I'm planning out my designs, I feel like I just kind of go with whatever comes to mind immediately. So for this kind of part, I think I want to do like something diagonal. So diagonal lettering like this, and then the from down here. So this is like a very rough sketch, but I actually grabbed the ruler. So the ruler in Adobe Fresco is on the bottom right corner. So if you click on the ruler down here, a ruler will pop up. And then this is how I'm going to draw my guides here. Let me just click undo because it already started drawing the guides. And so I'm going to put it, if you grab the ruler, I'm going to make it about 165 degrees. And then I'm going to draw my lines. So I'm going to draw the first one here. And then I'm going to grab it, bring it down just a bit because I'm thinking how big I want to make seasons. And again, we can adjust it as we go. And then I'll add the other line here. And then I want to add greetings. The thing with like adding like cursive to your lettering is I notice that I have to adjust it as I go. So we will probably have to adjust it, but I'm going to give myself some guides anyways. And I'm just going to pull this up. So I just selected the selection tool right here, and I'm going to bring it upwards. And I'm going to add another line here.
Do you typically do little thumbnails like you did in the top left for these designs?
Yeah, so I will put, just to kind of remind myself, what is the message? Because for me personally, I always spell things wrong whenever I'm lettering. So now I'm getting in the habit of like writing down what it is in my artboard just so I make sure that I don't mess up.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Also, we do have a question from Annika in the chat that she says, how does Natalie develop her lettering skills and how long have you been doing it professionally?
So the way I've been doing it is I've been doing it professionally probably about 5 years. And I would say, honestly, the way that I practice and improving my lettering is honestly just trying to practice every day and also practicing on paper as well. So that's really important to me. I've noticed that when I'm practicing, I definitely improve, and also trying like new techniques and taking courses. So that's like something that I do. Okay, so I went ahead and created a new layer because now I'm going to sketch out the design. This is not going to be the final design, but this is going to give us an idea for how we want it to look. So again, with the pencil brush, I'm just going to write out seasons up here. It doesn't have to be perfect. And then I want to do a cursive greetings right here. So I like to make my G's something like this. And I kind of hold off on adding like the tail of the G. Anything that has like some sort of cool little tail that I can make into a cool little flourish, I'll kind of hold off on it. And then I will continue. And just doing, simple cursive here because we can make it, we can adjust the look of it as we go. Okay, so again, I could add like the crossbar of the T, but I'm gonna hold off on that because again, I wanna add some sort of flourishes here. And again, even on the R, I don't even need to connect it to the E. So I could do something like this, bring down that portion of the R. Maybe do something like this. And then the G, maybe we could just close it like this.
Okay, so it's almost kind of like playing around with the composition of some of these ideas.
Yeah. So I like to see how I can build the space. And really, this also helps me practice flourishing as well because I can see where things can go, how I can use up the space better. And again, I want to make room right here for like our little message from whoever. And then I have this space right here. And I'm probably going to do something like this. And if you can tell, I forgot greetings, the S in greetings.
Oh, yeah.
This is why it's important to write it down.
That's why it's good to sketch it out like that first.
Yeah. I have the S here. And then even the top of the G, I can bring it up. Maybe do a loop like this. Something like that. So I have kind of like the overall idea for what I want. I'm just going to pull this up a little bit and I'm going to adjust everything. So I have this here. And then with the selection tools, we're going to grab this tool here. And I'm just going to select. Just select. Oops. The seasons. Okay, so then selecting this icon, I'm going to move seasons kind of front and center a little bit, adjust the size just a little bit, making it a little bit smaller. Because I'm also thinking I want to make seasons 3D, so I want to make sure I leave enough space for that as well.
Oh, nice.
Okay.
How do you determine kind of the style of text that you're going for? Because I've seen some of your designs, it varies the style for different words. Is there a way you kind of determine what you want to use for each word?
I try to stick to like 2 to 3 maximum styles of lettering per like project, I would say. So for here, I would say let's try to mix it between calligraphy or script lettering with some like boxy letters, and then we can build on those boxy letters. I'm like a huge advocate for like just start off with the boxy letter and then just build off of that, because I feel like sometimes it's hard to teach lettering because people are like, how do I do letters and create letters? And for me, I found that if I just start off with a boxy letter, I can like build off of that, take away from it, and like let it transform into some sort of new style.
Okay, that's a good idea.
Okay, so as you can see, my guides are not really matching up with what I have. So I'm just going to move them up a little bit. And then I'm going to select this top line here and then bring it down a bit, just so I have my guides there for me. And then this bottom part, I'll bring it up. And so that's what it looks like so far. So seasons, greetings, that's how I'm going to start off. So now that I have that done, I'm going to actually go in and start sketching the design. So for this design, I was thinking of making it feel more like a handmade part, so not super. So I want to keep the texture of the pencil. I think if we just use the pencil for the whole time, even with color, I think it'll make it have some nice texture for the card and make it feel really authentic and like kind of like somebody actually made it for you. So I'm gonna
Okay.
start a new layer at the top. And I'm gonna start with the pencil again, and I'm gonna start with that S. And I'm just following the guides of that S. So S's I know are kind of hard.
Yeah, S's seem like they'd be one of the trickier letters for sure.
Yeah. So I'm doing something like this.
I imagine
Okay,
the E is a little bit easier. All the straight
and this
lines.
is where, yeah, this is where like where the grid comes in handy, where you can just follow the grid.
Oh, okay.
And so like I just say, okay, I want everything to be about this thickness, that square. I want everything to be about that thick.
Is this holiday season like kind of a good season for letterers? I imagine there's a lot of card opportunities and stuff that comes up around now.
Oh yeah, I always say, like I have a greeting cards course, and in my course I tell everybody like the holiday greeting cards are actually one of the best selling cards in the greeting card industry. So it's good to make greeting cards.
Yeah, definitely. And if anyone doesn't know, you can go to Natalie's website and check out her courses there. Are these courses that you developed yourself, or are these in partnership with any company or anything like that?
No, I made them myself just because I felt like every time I needed information on something, those types of courses were not available. I didn't see any available. And so I just decided to make them myself once I had that experience. So the greeting cards course, it's actually closed right now, but it's opening Black Friday again. So that will be opening up soon. But that one, yeah, when I started doing greeting cards, it was kind of hard in the beginning because I wasn't sure what was normal in that industry, what the pricing was, contracts, especially contracts for that industry. It's really confusing. And I'm gonna go ahead and like duplicate this S, by the way.
Oh yeah.
Just so we have all the same S across. Yeah, it was very hard to kind of like figure out that whole industry, but luckily I met somebody who was an agent, or she wanted to be an agent, and she actually worked with Target licensing design, so she knew a lot about the licensing industry, and so she gave me a lot of tips and kind of went over the contracts with me. She was originally trying to be like my agent because she wanted to, kind of pursue that line of work instead of like just working primarily with like licensing for Target. She ended up going down a different path, but she definitely taught me a lot about licensing. And so like after I had like 3 years of licensing, I decided to make a course because a lot of people were asking me about it, and I felt like there wasn't a lot of information out there on that.
Yeah, that's great. I think that's always kind of the best place to approach it from. It's like, this is the information I wish was out there or bundled in this way.
Yes.
Feels like it's lacking, but that's great because that business side of things I feel like is tricky for a lot of artists and a lot of designers. It's kind of something, if you're doing freelance or independent art, a lot of us just have to figure out as we go and kind of learn on our own.
Yes, for sure. There's been a lot of that for me.
Yeah, can relate.
Okay, so I wrote seasons. And again, this is like me, I'm doing the more refined sketch, but I might end up refining it even more as I go. And then I'm going to create a new layer for gradings because I want to really make this gradings better looking. So again, using the pencil. And if you want to adjust the smoothing of the pencil, if it's hard for you or difficult for you to create like smooth lines in terms of calligraphy, you can like increase the smoothing on the brush so it'll be easier to make those loops.
Also, Mohammed in the chat had a question that said, what device are you using? I have an iPad Pro I think they're asking if that would work with it. Laura did post a great link in the chat that you can see all the devices that it works on, so definitely check that out. But are you using it on the PC currently?
The iPad?
Oh yeah, sorry, Fresco. You're using it on the iPad?
Yeah, I'm using it on the iPad.
Yeah.
That's like all I use is the iPad, honestly. Unless I'm like vectorizing. Actually, I'm starting to use the iPad for that too.
Yeah, do you find yourself using like working mobily a lot, or do you typically just use it from your studio?
I feel like it's an equal amount on both ends. I like to work on my computer, and then sometimes I like just to take my work home and work directly on my iPad. I feel like the iPad is just getting more powerful, and the software is improving a lot, but it's getting easier just to like work directly off my iPad. So that's pretty great. Like I don't really have to bring my computer with me everywhere.
Yeah. My computer is a giant box, so the iPad, just like the ability to even kind of go in the living room and work, or kind of be more flexible which room you're doing it in. I mean, it's definitely a huge perk.
Yeah. And I always say, like, I don't know what size iPad do you have?
I think it's the, what is it, 12 point something?
12.9 inch?
Yeah, 12.9.
Yeah, I personally really like that size. I feel like it's like the size of a regular piece of paper. And I feel like when you have like a notebook, like a regular size notebook, you can kind of like work on your lap. And so that's why I always recommend that size, because it's easy just to like plop on your lap and like do work that way.
Yeah, it's a great size because it's large enough to not feel like you're working on the, surface that's too small or you have to zoom in a ton, but it's also very portable, so it's kind of a nice, like, perfect medium.
Yeah. So I actually duplicated seasons. I'm going to make it 3D, and I duplicated it. And so this is my layer here that was behind. I'm just dragging it to the right because I do want to make it 3D. And then again, I'm always going to have to adjust like the layout here. So I'm just going to put these two together. And then I'm going to just move them around a bit better here. Maybe increase the size. Okay, so that's pretty much done. And then thinking about what kind of illustrations I want to add around it, I'm going to go ahead and turn off my writing here, seasons greetings. And then let me find this layer. Okay, so let me erase this portion up here. Okay, so then the next portion, I'm just going to see where I can add sort of some illustrations just to really make it pop a bit more. I was thinking a cool idea might be to add maybe some ornaments in the empty space, and then maybe adding like a reindeer. So I'm going to go ahead and add some ornaments. So I'm thinking I could just kind of make them, oops, let me grab my pencil again, kind of come down from my greetings. And then just kind of making like some ornaments this way. But again, as I'm going, I'm kind of adjusting. So I'm looking at this G here, and I'm going to go ahead and erase this portion of it. And I'm going to redo it because I want it to be a little bit larger. Maybe something like this. Okay. So going back, I'm going to create a new layer above, and let's start adding some illustrations. So again, we're just kind of sketching this out. I'm going to go ahead and add maybe an ornament here. Maybe one here.
Do you often fit in elements of illustration with your lettering?
I try to, just to kind of make it more fun, really. Yeah, because I feel like illustration really makes it pop more.
Yeah.
I also I think I need to practice my drawing too, so I kind of like try to like incorporate that into it.
Well, as someone who doesn't, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. Oh, I was just gonna say, I'm gonna make readings a little bit smaller. I think I want to fit it kind of the same size as seasons. So let me start over on my illustration. So I'm going to start again. I'm going to add some, I'm thinking I want to make some ornaments that are a little bit bigger. Maybe one right here.
Yeah, as someone who doesn't do lettering or doesn't really have any experience with it, it's kind of neat to see how the lettering itself is approached, you know, kind of like an illustration with how you're changing the composition around and keeping it fairly sketchy and open.
Yeah, I try to like really always kind of zoom out. So if you see me doing this a lot, it's because I'm seeing the space. I try to keep everything within a certain space. So this portion here, I could see that this ornament is kind of like going outside. And so like I'll go in and adjust those things. I'll probably adjust that right now. You bring it from the top part here. And again, always kind of adjusting the design to fit with my letters. Okay, and again, this is where we're gonna put the name, but I'm gonna leave that alone for right now. And then I was thinking maybe adding some, I forgot what it's called, but the green leaf, this leaf.
Oh yeah, the is that a holly leaf? I'm not sure. It's like an iconic image, but I don't know what it's called.
But nobody knows what it's called.
Yeah. Christmas leaf.
Leaf thing. Yeah, let's just call it the Christmas leaf that everyone uses in all their designs. I'm just gonna add some right here. Just to kind of like fill up that space. Maybe a little sparkler here. So I'm just trying to use up the space. I also don't want to take up too much space or add too much to the design. A tip that I always got from like one of these greeting card companies was that you should look at the design. Like, I guess this lady would tell me that Marilyn Monroe, before she would leave every day, she would look at herself in the mirror, and if she felt like something was drawing too much attention, she would take it off because she wanted people to see her for who she was. And she was saying I should look at greeting card designs that way as well. So if something is drawing too much attention on the greeting card, maybe you should remove it, because ultimately what you really want people to see is the greeting, and then have like the illustration and the image like be a part of it afterwards.
Yeah, that's great advice. Kind of keeping in mind what the focal point is and making sure it's not taking away from that.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm gonna put a reindeer here. So I practiced semi-drawing a reindeer for this Adobe Live.
Perfect.
So bear with me if it doesn't turn out as great as I want it to.
All your training has been for this moment.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm gonna do circles like this. Kind of just imagining that that's like the body. Let me zoom in here. And then the tail. And then the legs. So I'm probably going to bring it up. Let me just adjust it. So I'm going to select it. Make it smaller. Okay, and then deselect, and then, oops, going back to the pencil, and then drawing this leg here. And then the leg behind. And then the little legs. Again.
I feel like out of all the card types that I can think of, Christmas cards are definitely the one I picture with like little illustrations. There's so many things like reindeer and snowmen and all that stuff. Christmas trees.
I love doing Christmas cards. They're just like really fun.
Yeah, you can get really playful with them.
Okay, so here's my reindeer. You color it in a little bit. But this is the reindeer. Somehow kind of looks like a reindeer.
I like the antlers.
Yeah. I'm just gonna pull it down a little bit. Rotate it a tad bit. Okay, so I have my reindeer here. I have my ornaments. And then again, like there's all this extra space on the top of seasons. And this is where I can continue adding some more illustrations, or I can add flourishes. So I like to kind of have an equal balance of like illustrations and other elements. So lettering, flourishes. I don't want something to be, well, technically like my style is not super heavy in illustration. So I try to do like little bits of illustration and then add other elements. So I think at the top, what we could do is we can add maybe some more of these curly flourishes here. So maybe out of the reindeer, a flourish like appears. Maybe it's attached to, like, you know, the little rope that attaches to the reindeers on the sled.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it could be like something like that.
Oh, okay.
Just like a simple flourish, and then again,
yeah, it's a nice way to tie it all together.
And then we have our card. So essentially this is like the overall design I'm going to go for, and then I'm going to go ahead and so first off, what I did was I sketched it really quickly because I wanted to have a better idea for how I want the layout to look. That's my process all the time. Like what you're witnessing here is exactly the process I use for doing anything with lettering for projects. And then I'll go in and create more of a refined sketch. So this is more of the refined sketch, having a better idea for how I want the placement of letters, placement of elements, placement of illustrations. As you can tell, I was messing around with a lot of it, and I will continue to mess around with it. So like this part of this G still kind of bugging me. So I'm going to have to do something like this. And again, I'm always like adjusting. It's never just happening and it's like I'm done one time and I'm done. I'm always like fixing it.
Seems especially with like the script text, you can really get creative with that.
Yeah, you can. You could just keep fixing things and adjusting them as you go. Okay, so, and then the other thing that I noticed is a lot of the times I notice with lettering, people that are new to lettering, the spacing of the letters can be sometimes part of a challenge for them. So you can see here, if we focus on seasons, there's a lot of different spacing here. So what I learned is like there's mechanical spacing versus optical spacing. So mechanical is saying like, hey, we want one square of space between each letter. But sometimes that doesn't look so good. Sometimes it gives the illusion that they're not really spaced equally. So it's better to use optical illusion, kind of place letters closer together, even if it's not the same distance as the rest of the letters. And I'll give you an example. So if we have this S here, there's all of this space here. Even if we give it one square of space, it still looks like it's farther away from the rest of the letters. So what we would do is we bring that S in a little bit closer. So I'm going to go in to that same layer. Right now we'll turn off our 3D portion because we're going to have to adjust that anyways. So I'll select the S here. And then I'm just going to move it. Select it. Just going to give it a tad bit to the left. And then I'm going to select the rest of O and S here. And then just pull it a tad bit to the left.
That's interesting because I've kind of wondered that myself, if it's more of like a technical thing or if it's just kind of like a visual thing. So it's kind of interesting to see there's both aspects.
Yeah, I feel like anytime I try to be too technical with my lettering, it just doesn't. Sometimes it's too technical, and then you can notice like the flaws in it, or not the flaws, but like things that you don't really want people to notice, like the spacing between letters. I think once you kind of, the spacing is off, then that becomes distracting, and then it takes away from like your ultimate goal of like the design. Okay, so I'm actually going to pull in this S a little bit closer. Just a little bit. Maybe even the E, because again, this A kind of rounds out. So I'm just going to pull it in a little bit closer. Okay, so I have seasons there. I'm gonna go ahead and duplicate seasons. And again, we're gonna drag it down diagonally. About there. Let's drag this layer below that top seasons, and then I'm gonna reduce the opacity on that one. And then just to give myself a reminder of what I wanna do here, I'm gonna grab my pencil brush again, and I'm just gonna kind of like quickly just draw here, just to remind myself this is gonna be 3D.
Mm-hmm. This has come together quite fast. Do you have like, do you feel like you have a fairly consistent idea of how long you take for designs, or does it vary a lot depending?
Um, Usually I'm pretty fast. It just really depends on the client. Some clients are really, I would say, know what they want more or less. And so like it's faster to work on those projects. If they are not really sure what they want, it takes a lot of iterations. And so that usually takes the longest.
Okay.
But yeah, I'm usually pretty fast when it comes to like doing lettering like this.
I guess the murals is where it really gets time consuming.
Oh yeah, that is extremely time consuming, especially like the last one I did. I was painting and then some of the wall came off and I started freaking out.
Oh no, like the paint peeled off or like
Yeah, like the original paint from that building, the paint started coming off and peeling off the wall.
oh no.
And it was like, it was so bad. But luckily I fixed it. But it was like, sometimes those things happen.
Yeah. Have you done a lot of
Okay.
murals? Is that like a kind of a regular part of the work that you do?
So I just recently started, I did more murals back in the day. And then I kind of haven't really been doing it. But this year I picked up like 3 or 4 murals. So it's
Oh,
been
nice.
pretty busy with murals this year. I think I want to get back into it. It's a lot. It's just very, very, very tiring, honestly. Like, if you want to do
Yeah.
murals, it's great work, but it's extremely exhausting, honestly.
Yeah, I
It's
bet.
great to have
I've
an assistant.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I've heard they're very physically demanding.
Oh yeah, I was like, I think like I hurt my body and I could barely walk at one point because you also have to have the right tools. One day I forgot my ladder and I was like stepping onto this huge stool like over and over, and like the next day like I felt like I couldn't walk. It was
Oh
just
geez.
weird.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All the calf raises.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so I have my overall design here. Let me turn off these guides here just to kind of see. So you guys can see like this is pretty much the overall design. So what I'm gonna do now is, let me just adjust these lines again, because again, I was moving everything. So I'm grabbing my guide here. I'm just gonna pull it up. I wanna make sure all the letters and greetings are about the same size. And then I'm gonna grab the top one and then pull it down. Okay. So now that I have the design, so this is the design I want to make, what I'll go ahead and do is I'll just combine all of these layers. I'm not going to merge them. Let's just combine them. And we could delete our original ugly sketch. I'll just delete that. And then this is just my reminder to spell everything correctly, but so far everything looks like it's spelled correctly. If you guys catch anything, let me know. So I'll delete that layer. Okay, so now I have my design here. Just kind of fit it in the middle. And then I will reduce the opacity on that whole thing. So you'll see I'm reducing the opacity. And now I can start doing the final sketch of it all. So I have a more refined sketch here. I'm gonna go ahead and start actually doing the actual sketch itself. Sometimes I'll start with the outside, the outline of the letter. Sometimes I'll start coloring it. Sometimes I will just do not even a pencil kind of texture brush. I will just use more of like, let me see if I can show you. More of like a hard round brush. So it's like smooth color, no texture at all. And so that's easy to do. I can just trace the letters and fill them in really quickly. But this one I wanted to give it more of like I actually paint or color penciled it on paper kind of feel.
And are these
So
lines that are going to be in the final design, like they're going to show?
yes, so I want to do them on for the final design. Again, we might adjust them as we go. So I'm gonna go for it and see how it looks. I wanted to give you guys like kind of like this is like kind of the process of how I do it. So I try something and if it does work, then I just like change it as I go along. But so far I think we could do that. We could do it like this. We can use the pencil outline. Let me go back to my sketching brush and going back to the pencil. So it looks like this. And then I'm gonna go ahead and start making those letters nice and straight. So I'm gonna go ahead and trace my S here. And let me just increase the smoothing here real quickly.
Also, we do have a great question from Alicia in chat on the topic of murals. And they say, how do you transfer your design onto the wall? Do you freehand it or use a projector?
So sometimes I will freehand it and sometimes I will use a projector. It just depends on the design itself. I found that freehanding it can be a little bit easier, honestly, because with projectors, it's never like you don't really know what the environment's going to be like, even if you know, like, hey, I can turn off the lights in this room. Things pop up, and sometimes, you know, you can't use the projector in that way. So I've seen like both work really well. I mean, I would prefer to use a projector, honestly. But sometimes I've just had to just freehand it. Like one of the murals I did earlier this year, I had to do one kind of like outside, and they didn't let me go in any other time except in the middle of the day when there's like a lot of natural light. So when I got there, I realized, oh, I can't use the projector here. And so I just had to like look at my iPad and try to freehand the whole thing. And so luckily, like I said, like because I practiced so much on paper, like it was pretty easy for me to just freehand the whole thing on this like huge wall. But it was also very stressful too.
Yeah.
So I mean, like, oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, when you do that, is there any sort of sketch that you lay out when you can't just trace it, or do you have to kind of like go at it in one attempt?
I will go at it with one attempt, but I always have like some sort of like safeguard in case I need to fix it. So for example, if you're painting, you're sketching, let's say you're sketching your design and then you paint and then you realize, oh no, like this doesn't work. I always make sure I have like that background paint so that I can go and paint over it and like redo it, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So that's like a huge thing that I always try to make sure I have that paint, because if anything happens, I can always fix it. Okay, so I'm just tracing. And again, like if you didn't know this, if you hold down, you can create like a straight line. So I'm just holding down and creating some straight lines here. And then making these little serifs at the end, these little ends of the letters.
And to do the straight line, you just make the stroke and then hold on it, correct?
Yeah, so I'm holding on the stroke and then it creates like the straight line.
Yeah, that's a great tip. Sleeman in chat says I can't draw vertical lines. So there's definitely tools, of course, digitally to do that as well. You were using the ruler tool earlier too.
Yeah, so if I I can show you guys how to use the ruler. Let me just move this little arc here really quick. And again,
straight lines and circles are tough.
Yeah, for sure. If like as I'm drawing this, I will use my eraser and again adjust the size to be a little bit smaller, just to kind of clean up those edges. And then if you want to like create lines, you can hold down or you can use the ruler. So if you grab the ruler from the bottom right corner, it'll pop up. So here it is, and then I'll bring it up. And I want to make the lines for the A, but I'm thinking I want it to match the E. So I'm just gonna match it here. And then again here. And then we have our straight line. So then you'll see here we have like the lines in between the A. So I'm just gonna erase those.
Yeah, that's a good use of the ruler tool. I didn't even think of, just kind of getting some consistency between the letters.
Yeah, that's like one thing that's one of my things I like about Fresco is like that ruler tool. You don't really realize how helpful that tool is.
Yeah, between that and the grid, seems really helpful.
Yeah. And then I'm going to go ahead and duplicate the S here because we have it on, we have 3 S's in this. So by clicking the 3 dots here, just click on duplicate selection and then just dragging it to the portion of my design. And I'll duplicate it again and then drag it to the end. And then I'm just going to merge these here by dragging and dropping them on top of each other and then tapping and clicking merge layers and group. So now for my O, this one's a little bit harder, but I go slower. And then the middle of it. And you can see like that O looks a little bit off. So I'm going to go ahead and erase right here because I want it to be the same thickness all the way around. So that looks better. And then the same with the end, we can grab the ruler again. If we grab that ruler and then turn it to 90 degrees, we can make those straight lines for the end.
Mm. Yeah, and Sleeman was asking about the ruler. It's the bottom right-hand corner icon.
Yeah, this one's all the way at the very bottom right-hand corner. And I'll just make those little flourishes, they're not flourishes, serifs at the end. Again, it looks more sketchy, but that's the look I want. I want it to look more like as if I got color pencils and I made this on paper.
Yeah. Did it take you a good while to find kind of your own personal style with lettering, or is it something you feel like just kind of happened naturally?
I would say it did take me a while. I think that there's a lot of pressure in the beginning to like find like what's my style. I think that was like a lot of pressure at first, and then just trying all these different styles in the beginning and playing around with the designs was pretty much how I kind of figured out like I should just do what I like. I should just design and create letters that I enjoy doing and not doing it. I in the beginning I felt like I needed to know all styles of lettering and all styles of typography. And eventually I kind of like realized, hey, I should just do the style of lettering that speaks to me and the things that I really like to make. So I try to just kind of, if you see my work, all looks pretty much, I would say a lot of it looks very similar because I want to stick to making the letters that I like and not trying to go too crazy because it's not really my thing to kind of do like super intricate designs, I would say. But yeah, a lot of people ask that and I feel like just, design things that you really like, design in the way that you enjoy and don't just do something because everybody else is doing it. Because ultimately you're going to get better at the thing that you really love doing.
Yeah, that's a great perspective. I think what you said about there's like so many areas of every part of art that you can learn, it's kind of overwhelming, but I think that is what makes people style is they kind of hone in on these certain areas they like and these aesthetics and choices that they really like. And that's kind of what stands out.
Yeah. And I noticed like, as I see other artists in the whole, they're pretty much doing the same thing. They're focusing on their own style of doing things. And that's why people start to, take notice of their work because I don't know, they get really good at that one thing.
Yeah. And I've kind of said that's a big part of style is like, it's kind of this culmination of things that you enjoy and little choices that you repeatedly make because you like how they look. And after a while, it starts to stand out.
Yeah, for sure. I know with me, I'm like, you guys can see, like, I always like to use the color pink. So sometimes I try, like, whenever I'm doing greeting cards, it's fun for me because I have to stray out of that. But ultimately, I just really like to, stick to my color palette. Oops, I got the wrong brush. And then to grab the eraser. I'm still not liking this O, so I'm going to fix it a little bit.
So you have a fairly consistent color palette that you use throughout a lot of your work?
Yeah, just for like social media, I just try to stick to a, let's say, like a color palette and like just a certain style, just so that it remains consistent. I think that, when it comes to like brands trying to find your work, I don't know. I think like something in the brain, like people like organization. So when you see like an Instagram that looks super organized and super like I guess cohesive, I think those kind of Instagrams really stand out.
Definitely,
Especially if
yeah.
especially if you're trying to do it for business and trying to get work from it. I just try to stick to that. And then, when it comes to projects, I will be like, okay, like I don't have to do it in pink, but you kind of get an idea for like how I do my style.
Yeah, I mean that's a big part of kind of, brands and selling yourself as a brand is that sort of consistency. Like what does this person do? What do they have to offer? And at a glance they can kind of see, oh, okay, this is what they're all about.
Yeah. And as you guys can see, this O is not working with me here. Okay, I think that's good. Okay, so now I have seasons done. I'm gonna go ahead and duplicate that layer because I want it to be a little bit darker. And then just kind of going over the S here. Okay, so I have seasons done. And then for seasons, I'm thinking maybe adding, so in this layer group, I have 2 layers of seasons, just because I want it to be darker. I wanted the outline to be darker. And then I'm going to create a new layer in that stack here. So I have a new layer here. And I'm thinking of adding some sort of like design within the letters, maybe some lines. So I could do something like this. Now remember, it doesn't have to be super perfect. We're kind of giving the impression that we made this on paper using some colored pencils. And then I added that inside line. And then I'll do the same for the E. So the E is a little bit tricky. I'm just gonna go in the middle here, again, holding down to get a straight line. And then connecting it here. And then adding the little triangle shapes at the ends. Maybe I'll connect it like this.
Also just wanted to say hi to Ramazan and everyone in the chat who's joined us recently. Welcome on in, everybody. Also, feel free to let us know in the chat if you have any questions for Natalie or anything like that.
Yes, feel free to stop me if you have any questions.
On the subject of social media, how much is that like kind of a priority to you, or like how deliberate are you in terms of keeping it updated and posting regularly?
I think I hate to say it. I hate to say it, but social media is really important. I always say this. I have like a love-hate relationship with social media. I think it can be kind of really addicting, and the way the world's going, like I feel like you have to be like on every platform, and it gets really exhausting. But it really does help you. Well, has helped me get a lot of work. So I try to be consistent with it. I just try to stick with it all the time as much as I can. But recently I took a break from it just because, it kind of get to the point where for me, I get to the point where I just feel like I don't want to be on it. So I'll take a little break from it and then go back to it. But it's definitely helpful, I would say. I've gotten a lot of my work from it. Now, I mean, recently I haven't gotten work from my Instagram. Most of my work now comes from like just clients coming back for work or people recommending me to people. But in the beginning, a lot of my clients came from social media.
Would you say primarily Instagram, or is it kind of varied?
Primarily Instagram, because that's the one that I would use the most. I mostly had Instagram in the very beginning. And then just recently I have a TikTok now, which I'm really bad at posting on. Which I don't even know if I have not gotten any jobs from TikTok actually. So I don't really, I'm sure that people get jobs from it, but I'm pretty new to that platform. So
Yeah,
uh,
I joined it and I had this little burst of making videos and I haven't touched it in months and I feel so
I
so
know.
bad.
Me too. Yeah,
Video
like I
content's
bet.
tough though.
Oh yeah, it's like it takes so much time, a lot
Yeah.
of time to do video content, and you really have to like plan those things out. Um, and like my husband actually, he is a game developer, so he releases he's like a mobile game developer, so he's made a couple of games. And so I told him like, get on TikTok, try to promote your game that way. Because a lot of like these indie game developers are like promoting their games on TikTok.
Hmm.
Um, and so he got into it and he was like, oh my gosh, like you have to be on it all the time, like really promoting your work, which it's a lot of work. And he hasn't been on for a long time. He's like, oh, I need to get back in, but it's just a lot of work.
Yeah, it
But
becomes almost like big part of the job.
yeah, it is definitely, I would say it's definitely part of the job. I hope that I get to the point where I don't have to like, I think it's just, I wonder if it's always going to be like this, where you just always have to have like a social presence. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, it's tough. I Paloma in the chat says me too love hate. It's funny because that's totally me too. Like I feel like I can have one social media at a time that I'm kind of updating, and even then I'm pretty inconsistent with it. Like Instagram is always like, oh, a couple months without it, and then a burst of things,
Yeah.
a couple months without it. And it's tough, but it can definitely be a big part of it if you're doing like freelance or independent work, because for a lot of people it's a big part of how they get their name out there.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's definitely a lot of work and yeah, it's a lot of work. I always say like as a small business, you have like you're wearing multiple hats. You're like the social media manager and the designer and the accountant. Like you wear all these hats and like I can honestly say sometimes it's extremely overwhelming. Like you don't even want to do social media. Like for me, I'm
Yeah.
like, I get to the point where I'm like, I don't want to do it. But then like I find like inspiration in like sharing or doing projects or doing getting creative and sharing that work and sometimes it kind of inspires me to like post and like share that, share those projects.
Yeah, definitely. I could relate to that. What you were saying in the beginning about sometimes you feel like you need to take a break from it. What I try to do, and it's difficult sometimes, is just like post and put stuff out there, but not consume from it. And that's
Yes.
always a challenge because Instagram's not bad, but like in general, if I'm on social media too much, I feel like it's kind of has a certain toll time wise, and it's not always the most uplifting stuff. So I try to post as much as I can, but not like actually browse, and that's I don't know, it's
Yeah,
tricky.
I think that's yeah, you kind of get and that's the thing about TikTok. I feel like I haven't been on it in a long time because I feel like with that app you can just keep going and that scares
Yeah.
me. Like
Yeah,
you
it's
don't like you
true.
could be on it for out like you could literally be scrolling and scrolling and scrolling and just realize, oh my God, what am I putting in my brain right now?
Yeah, it's kind of like they've learned lessons from different social media where they're like, how do we make it as easy to just keep watching as possible? Like
Yeah.
the way
How do
they
we make
set
it
it up.
so addicting?
Yeah, and then videos too, it's very engaging. So and then just puts you right to the next one. So yeah,
Yeah, it
it's
really is. Like,
tricky.
yeah, it's a tough one. So I actually dragged the seasons. I dragged one of my seasons. I duplicated my seasons and I dragged it diagonally because I'm going to, again, we're going to make it 3D. So I just dragged it to the right. And you can see it kind of doesn't really line up with my original design, but that's because we were adjusting the space in between the letters. So I have this is my 3D portion here. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to reduce the opacity on it just so we can kind of get a better idea for which layer we're working off of. So it's that one. And then I'm going to connect it with the top. So again, like an easy way is grabbing my ruler and then just kind of connecting point to point. So if I go here, I can connect the S here, S here, and then just kind of going to each point and connecting them. case you want to be super like straight with your lines. You don't have to. You can kind of go and, connect them on your own if you want. Make it have a more of a hand-drawn feeling. But I'm just going to go in and connect all.
A little manual extrusion of the text.
Yeah.
Do you ever use anything like to vectorize your lettering?
Yeah, I always use Adobe. I'm always using Illustrator.
Yeah, this was just reminding me of some of the new 3D features for Illustrator,
Yeah,
like extruding text and everything.
Yeah, I tried it yesterday. I was like, "Ooh, this is cool." Like they made it so much easier to do that. Okay. And I'm just connecting the points here. It's looking like a big old 3D mess here, but don't worry, we'll fix it soon.
All part of the process.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite part of the process in terms of like sketching, cleaning it up, coloring, all that stuff?
That's a good question. I don't know. It's kind of hard for me because sometimes I really I like sketching, but I think like adding the color portion and that part is really fun to me too. So I guess like it just depends on how intricate the sketch is. Because sometimes, like for example, I'm working on a project right now where I'm providing sketches to the client, and they don't want anything too detailed. And I'm already ready to add color because I can see like what it can become, and like how color is just going to make it so much better. So it just kind of depends. Like if my sketch is like super detailed, I'm like, oh, okay, this is really fun. But if it's like not super detailed, I'm really excited to add color to really, bring it to life that way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think there's different parts of the process I like too. Like the sketch is really fun because the freedom and you're creating the actual design, but there's something to be said for like adding color in all those stages where you can really see it come together.
Yeah. Okay, what I'm gonna do really quick is I'm gonna turn off my background so we can kind of see what the 3D looks like right now. And you can kind of see like it looks 3D, but there's a lot going on. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna grab my eraser and I'm gonna erase, let me go back to that layer. I'm gonna erase the portions that would be underneath the main letter. So you'll see here, I'm just erasing it. So now it looks more like an extruding S here. And then the same thing, I'm gonna go for the rest of the letters. So I wanna color this in, like kind of like a coloring book.
Do you already have a color palette in mind at this point?
Yeah, so I saved some color palettes that I thought might work. And I don't know if anybody has ever used this, but like you can create color palettes in Adobe Illustrator on your desktop and then save them to your Creative Cloud library and then open up that color palette in Adobe Fresco.
Yeah, that's really useful to be able to have those connect.
Yeah.
Also, hello in the chat to Shauna. And I just want to remind anyone watching on YouTube, if you do want us to see your comments and questions and all that, head over to behance.net/Adobe Live and we'll be able to see them there.
Almost done here.
Do you find the kind of block text to be easier than the more script-like text? Is one easier than the other?
I think the script is easier for me. I think it's because like when I first started doing lettering, I was primarily doing like calligraphy. So that's what I was doing first. So I think it's just easier for me to do script. And then I guess box letters are easy too, but I think script is easier for me.
Nice. So you have kind of experience with like traditional calligraphy.
Yeah, like when I first started, I was primarily doing calligraphy and holding calligraphy workshops. So I've had like a lot of practice in that sense. But I eventually like found that I really, really like lettering way more.
Hmm.
Um, because you could also like include calligraphy in your designs of lettering. So I stopped doing like the traditional calligraphy route and then just kind of focused on like lettering itself.
Okay. Yeah, that's a great background to have. I imagine it gives you kind of a lot of control over your lettering.
Yeah. And that's the other thing is like you get a lot of control over your like having a steady hand as well. Like calligraphy, you really have to have a steady hand. So that's like been really helpful as
Nice.
well. Okay, so I have my 3D letter here. I'm gonna go ahead and let's like go back and make the uh, increase the opacity back to 100% so you kind of get an idea for how it looks. So it's looking something like this. And what I'm going to do next is I'm just going to go in and clean it up a bit again, just kind of fixing the areas that I don't want to show. Okay, so that looks good. And again, we can like make our lines darker if we want. It's up to you how you want the style to look. Ultimately, you can make them darker, you can make them lighter. I just wanted to feel like I was like using a color pencils for this design. So I'm going to turn
Yeah.
on my sketch again, and then I'm going to go and create a new layer above seasons. And now we're going to move on to creating. So that cursive calligraphy portion of the lettering. Now, again, if you have trouble, creating like those perfect like little loops, I recommend just increasing the smoothing tool. So if I do the smoothing here, it should increase it. And you can see
Yeah,
it
that can
makes
definitely be
more of like,
helpful
yeah,
for
it makes
those
more of like these
consistent lines.
smoother. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to go ahead and trace my V, and my smoothing is turned on.
So do you find inspiration for lettering anywhere kind of specific? Are there any like artists or things you look to?
I really find, I would say the most inspiration I find is from cities. So
Oh,
like,
okay.
I mean, wherever I go, I try to like take pictures of like the art around me or the typography around me, old vintage signs, things like that. When I was in Thailand, like a long time ago, I was really inspired by the Thai lettering. Like those little, their characters are so cute to me. Like they're just like these little tiny little lines. Um, and that was really fun. Like that was a lot of inspiration for me as well. So it just kind of depends on where I'm at. Right now, I'm actually in Portugal, so there's like a lot of old signs that I like to like kind of look at the lettering and get inspiration from.
Yeah, that's great. That's a good point. I mean, lettering and text and all that is pretty much everywhere, so certainly a
Yeah,
lot of inspiration to find out there.
like this G. So bigger loops are a little bit harder for me, but I think that will do. Actually, I'm going to go at it again. Okay, that's better. And then we have this one above the G. So I'm just extending this portion of the G.
Yeah, I think the contrast between the blocky letters now that we really have that 3D effect and the smooth lines of this script are looking great.
Yeah, I like to combine like script with blocky letters.
Yeah, it's a nice contrast.
I have my little bar for my T. So I have greetings done. And so for greetings, I was thinking of making it look like maybe like a ribbon, like a red ribbon or something. So I'm gonna go ahead and continue working on greetings. So what I'm gonna do is I want to make it look like a red ribbon, like kind of like Christmassy red ribbon. So I'm thinking I'm gonna add thickness either to the left side. So whenever you're adding thickness to like less calligraphy or script, you can add it either top and bottom, left and right. It just depends on like the look you're trying to go for. So I'm thinking maybe a left and right kind of thing. So I'm just gonna see how it looks if I add it like this. So you can see I'm adding it to the left and the right side here. So left side, right side. If I
Okay.
wanted to, yeah, if I wanted to give it a different look, I could add it to the top and bottom. To give it a different kind of look. So it just depends on the look you want to give it. I think I'm just going to stick to the left side and the right side for this one. And then I come over here for the G.
Yeah, that's a neat effect. It kind of gives a little bit more dimension, but still keeps that kind of fine elegance that the script has with the thinner
Yeah.
lines.
So I'm just going left to right. Yeah, because sometimes people are like, oh, I don't know which part of the letter to make the thickness for the style. And so I just try to say like, however you're adding the thickness, it should be consistent throughout all the letters. So if you add it all, let's say you want it all thickness only on the left side of the letter, they're all look the same. They all look like they come from the same style of that.
Mm-hmm. Also, welcome on into Michelle and Alexandra. Good to see everyone.
And if anybody has questions, again, feel free to stop me.
Yeah, definitely let us know, and I'll make sure to relay your questions to Natalie. On the topic of inspiration, are there any artists that you really kind of look up to or whose work you admire?
That's a good question too. It's kind of be hard for me to say off the top of my head because I haven't really been on it. I'm like you, I'm not scrolling through Instagram right now.
Yeah.
I would say there's a lot of artists that I really, really like, that I've become friends with. I actually met a girl in Colombia named Natalia, and with a Spanish version of my name. And so she wasn't a lettering artist, but she was a creative, and she had her own like little stationery shop. And I just love, like, she really inspired me in the way she saw stationery. She made it like kind of like ice cream. Like her inspiration was ice cream. So all of her products were like, they looked like you wanted to eat them. Like they were just super, super fun. And she just really, really loved what she did. And you guys should follow her. She's Helado de Nata on Instagram. But she's from Colombia, and like she has her own stationery shop, and she makes her own like notebooks. It's like really, really cool. I think it's so cool to see other artists or other creatives in like different industries, and like it's just so interesting to me all the time, like hearing people that do something totally different from me, and those kinds of things inspire me as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Like there's so many different perspectives people come at it with, and maybe like viewpoints you haven't really thought of. So
Yeah.
it's always interesting to see.
And she actually, like, I actually did my first workshop with her when I was like traveling over there. She was kind of like the one that pushed me to like do one. I was really nervous, and like I did one over there. So it was, she kind of taught me a lot as well.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. And it was my first workshop, and it was in Spanish. And Spanish isn't my first language. So it was like there was parts of the workshop where I had to ask her like, oh, how do you say like words you wouldn't even think about in Spanish. I forgot what one of them was. It was like, I don't even remember. It was like a word we would use just in lettering. And I was thinking, how do I say this in Spanish? Like it was hard. It was fun. But I really need to practice my Spanish, honestly.
I can definitely imagine that would make it more challenging.
Yeah, I was so nervous at first. I was like, oh my gosh. Everyone was like, you're fine, you know Spanish. And I was like, you guys don't understand. Like, I know Spanish. The only reason why I know Spanish is because My grandma, I would hear my family talk it like speak Spanish all the time. So it was easy for me to like as a kid, like you pick it up and you learn it that way. But my parents never
Hmm.
spoke to us in Spanish. Like they would talk to us in Spanglish. Um,
Okay.
but they never spoke to us in Spanish because like when my dad came to the US, he had a really hard time in school because he only knew Spanish. So his mentality was that like if he taught us Spanish, it would be hard for us in school. Now he's like, I wish I taught you guys Spanish. So I'm not like a great, like I could understand it, but when it comes to like, hey, let me teach a workshop in Spanish, like it was,
Yeah,
it was
some
good,
added pressure.
but yeah, there was a lot of pressure. Okay, so I finished greetings here, and so far so good. I'm gonna turn off my sketch background so you can kind of see how it looks. It looks kind of like a ribbon.
Yeah, that looks great.
And then I'll turn my sketch back on because I want to make sure like I'm covering all the elements here. I'm not forgetting something. Okay, so I have a new layer up at the top. Let me just make sure that there's nothing on this layer. Okay, layer is empty. And then I can go ahead and start drawing those illustrations that we drew in the beginning. So I'll go ahead and again, just grabbing the pencil brush and just using the pencil brush here. And then just going, and you don't have to trace it exactly because sometimes my sketches are really messy and I'll just make new ones. And then I had the little Christmas leaf here that we said it was called.
The old Christmas leaf. Berry and
The
leaf.
Christmas leaf. What is it called?
Oh, I just said berry and leaf.
Oh, I thought that's what the name was. Okay.
I still want to say it's holly. I don't think it's mistletoe. I don't think that's what
Oh, maybe
mistletoe
it
looks
is
like.
holly.
I I'll have to look it up after the stream and confirm.
Yeah,
We'll
I
let
think it.
everyone know tomorrow for sure.
Yeah.
Keep you
Unless
posted.
somebody knows, please tell us.
I think that's what Wade said earlier was holly, mistletoe. Um, Antonia says holly leaf. Okay, I'm going with holly because
Holly
it's.
leaf. There we go.
Thanks,
Holly leaf.
chat.
Now I know what
Shauna's
it's called. Thank
confirming.
you. Thank you guys.
They got our back. Also, Laura from chat has a question for you. When did
Okay.
you start your creative journey?
Oops, I did. Sorry, let me go back into it. I started my creative journey. I guess there's a long answer to that. There's a short answer to that. I would say the long, like not really long answer, but when I was younger, my mom, I always tell this story, but my mom used to always make these like worksheets for my sisters and I of like letters because she wanted us to have like neat writing. So every day I remember we'd come home from school and she'd give us these letters, practice the letter A, B. And it was from there that I really liked to doodle and like draw letters doodling. And so when I was like traveling in Thailand, like I just started drawing letters in my notebook and like creating designs that way. And then somebody told me like, hey, you can do that and make money and do it for like work. And at first I was like, no way, you cannot do this for work. And then I just kind of like, I just was like, okay, I'll just try and see what happens. And so, after a lot of like failure and learning, like I did, eventually it did work. You can make money off of this. And yeah, I've been like lettering since, I would say I started my business in 2015 maybe, or 14.
Okay.
Maybe 2014. I don't remember. Yeah, I think it was 2014 I started. But yeah, it's been a long ride.
Before that point, when you kind of realized this is something maybe you could do more seriously, were you still kind of like designing and drawing as a hobby regularly, or was it something you kind of discovered around that point?
I think I discovered it around that point. Like I was doing it and I thought it was really fun, but I didn't really see the potential of being able to do that as like a career. And I think this was like, I would say during this time, like 2014, 2015, lettering wasn't really around, I would say. There's probably like a couple of major artists. And so I didn't really see the potential of it until I started like actually doing it. Like my first work or my first jobs were like designing logos. And my first logo, I think I designed for $20. And it took me a long time to make it. And I was so happy when I made those $20 because I realized you could make money off of like
Yeah,
lettering, although it was like very low money, like it wasn't a lot of money, but for me, like just having that little victory of like knowing like, hey, this is possible. People do want this kind of stuff.
definitely. Yeah, it kind of opens up this whole like door of possibilities. It's like, oh, okay,
Yeah,
I
it
can
really
do
does.
something with
Like,
this.
yeah, it was really, and as a, working for myself, I think it's like my favorite part of working for myself is like you get to manage your own time and just make the things you want to make and the thing, do the things that you really enjoy.
Yeah, definitely. That's great.
So I'm just drawing little designs inside of my ornaments.
Antonia wants to know
And
if you ever use guides to make perfect circles.
I do. And the reason why I'm not doing it here is because, like I said, I wanted to feel like I'm sending these people a greeting card and I made it like on a piece of paper with colored pencil. So this is the look I'm going for. So it looks different. It looks like more rough around the edges, I would say. The circles are not perfect, but I also keep in mind I do have smoothing on to 100%. So these circles look pretty smooth. That's not all me.
So it just kind of depends on the purpose of the design, like what look you're going for.
Yeah, so like just depending on what I want it to look like, some designs are a lot more smooth, I would say. Like sometimes when I do greeting cards, sometimes the client just only wants like vector designs and they don't want like a lot of texture. So then they're more like smooth lines and a lot of textures. So it just really depends on the project. And then also like the things that you just want to make on your own.
Yeah, that's a good point because I think it's one of those things that like if you use perfect circles here, it might stand out as like, why does everything kind of have a hand-drawn feel, but these are like mathematically perfect circles. And
Yeah.
on the flip side, if you're doing like a really structured, rigid, lettering that looks very, I don't know, kind of computer generated for the lack of a better term.
Mhm.
If you have these hand-drawn circles that are imperfect, they're gonna kind of clash with the rest of the style too.
Yeah, definitely. So I try to like keep the style ultimately consistent, but you can see like the letters and seasons are like pretty straight. But like I think the pencil texture kind of still gives it that feeling of like, hey, I did this on paper.
True, yeah. Texture does a lot for that.
So I'm actually going to draw the reindeer on a different layer because just in case I want to move it around. And I'm just going to trace it here. I'm going to rotate my canvas a little bit. A little tail.
It's a happy looking reindeer.
Hopefully this looks like a reindeer.
Also, Ruth has a question as well. Do you normally use your own handwriting, or from time to time do you use typography fonts, or do you mix them?
I only use my writing. I don't use typography. I'm trying to think if I ever use typography for anything else. No, it's just mostly my just hand lettering. I do want to learn how to do like design like a font though. That's like one of my goals.
Oh yeah, I've heard that's a lot of work. It seems like one of those things that might be deceptively like, simple at first, you think, but I imagine there's a lot that
Yeah,
goes into it.
I kind of tried it. Like I made like a really simple one where I just wrote each letter, and there's a lot of like little technical details you have to keep into account whenever you're doing that because you have to think, especially if you're doing like cursive, you have to think how each letter is going to connect with the rest of the alphabet, and then like period, semicolon, all those things. You have to think of all of those things,
Yeah.
and so I could imagine like it's a lot of work. I was just doing it for fun, like a little simple thing just to see what it was like, but it's definitely seems like a lot of work. I know like people like charge, I've seen companies charge charge like a font, a custom font for like $10,000.
Oh, wow.
Okay, I'm gonna create a new layer really quick, and just this flourish on the top. I'm just gonna add it here. Okay, so now we have our season's greetings. If I turn off the sketch behind it, it looks something like this. And so far, so good. Looks good.
Yeah.
Everything feels pretty balanced. The only thing I would say is maybe I should move the reindeer a tad bit to the right and the flourish, but I'm going to move the reindeer a little bit to the right, and then the flourish a little bit to the right. And then also these sparks at the top, I'm going to select them and move them a little bit to the right as well. Okay, so I have that done. So the next thing I'll do is I'll add color. So I have all my layers here. I'm actually going to go ahead and group them. Let's just group them for right now. I just grouped greetings is all together, seasons is all together, and then the illustrations are all grouped as well. So they're all in their little stack over here. What I'm going to do next is I want to add color. So I actually saved some color palettes out just to kind of see which one you guys would want to use. And what I'm going to do is let's create a new layer, and let's actually drop that one below seasons, because we want it to go under that black outline of the letters and the illustrations. So if I open up my color wheel over here on the side, if I go down, let me just see if I pull it up, click all, and you can see I saved like holiday colors here. I saved them here. And then I also just, saved one that I just kind of made really quickly here. So sometimes I'll just save it out and then just put it onto my screen. So do you guys have a preference for a color palette you guys would prefer? So there's the holiday colors, this one. And then there's this one, which has like a pink. I'm not sure if that'll work, but we could try. And then this one at the top here.
Yeah, let us know in chat if you guys have any preferences.
If not, I'll just go ahead. I'll go ahead and use this one.
Yeah, I like those. That's a nice balance. It definitely has that kind of holiday feel to it.
Yeah, I'll do this one. And then again, so like the cool thing about Adobe is like you can save out your color palettes in Adobe Illustrator and then save it to the cloud, and save it to your libraries, and then it'll go across all devices. So that's a really cool feature.
Antonia does say top color palette.
Okay, so this one?
Yeah.
I'm gonna guess this one. Okay. Okay, so let's do that one. So I'm gonna start off with seasons. I'm gonna grab the light green, and I'm just gonna fill in the seasons here.
Do you usually try to get a balance between like warm and cool colors in your palettes?
I would say whenever it comes to color palettes, I kind of just go in and I will draw off the colors on the page and then just kind of see what works. I'm not the best at color palettes, I would say. I definitely need to practice more on that, but I've heard people say the Adobe color wheel, or I forgot what it's called. There's like an Adobe program for color palettes.
I believe it's colors.adobe.com. If anyone in chat wants to check it out, it's a great way to kind of come up with some harmonized colors.
Yeah, so I'll use that whenever I, can. If not, like I'll just kind of play around with colors of my own and just, see how they would look on the design. Just kind of quickly scribbling them onto the page. And then I have the S here, so it's giving off that like more of a pencil feel here.
And are you using a different brush for this, or the same one, just larger?
I'm using the same one, same size brush.
Oh, okay.
And I think sometimes it appears larger because I'm going sideways.
Oh, so you're doing the pen tilt to get that effect.
Yeah, so I'll do the pen tilts, maybe to cover more ground or like give it more of that texture.
Thanks for putting that in the chat, Wade. You guys can check out the links there. But what you said about kind of putting the colors down on the page pretty roughly, and gauging how it looks. That's definitely like what I do too. And I think that helps a lot to see it in context before I can really judge.
Yeah, that's what I feel like that is like the most helpful for me. Like whenever I'm picking colors, just kind of like plopping some down and seeing how they look. But I would say I'm not the best with colors.
Yeah,
I
colors, I mean,
definitely
it's a whole world of like, other things to consider.
there should be like a some sort of like class or something on like how do you pick colors.
Yeah, color theory is like definitely its own kind of beast to tackle. I
Yeah,
think the
is
most
that a class?
color theory.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think they definitely have color theory classes. I've seen some videos online here and there on it. I feel like composition, it's kind of a tricky topic, but one that
Hmm.
it almost feels like you kind of have to have some level of intuition about it, like how it if it's working and kind
Yeah,
of feel it out.
that's what I was gonna say. I feel like you have to have like a lot of experience in it to kind of know what works.
For me, I think the best color tip I've kind of heard or couldn't give is like pick a dominant color, like the primary color, and then a secondary, and like start, with one or two, and then add a third, and try not to choose too many because once you get like, 15 different colors, it starts getting kind of an ununified look. But I like
Yes,
to
yeah.
start small.
Yeah, that's the one thing I do tell like people that, do my courses, like when it comes to colors, like don't do too many colors. Because then it becomes like then it just looks like a rainbow and like just I think it takes away from the design when there's just way too many colors. But
Yeah.
sometimes it might work.
And I think you said something similar earlier with the types of text that you're doing. You said you try not to choose too many of them, too many styles of text.
Yeah. I try to stick to like three, four, maybe four maximum.
Okay.
But for the
I
most part, I just kind of try to stick to two.
Yeah, I think that's might be kind of a design principle in general that I see from time to time because it's like you kind of see that in color where it's don't use too many, kind of keep it cohesive. If you're using different types of shapes, sticking to the same few shapes and repeating them in different ways, it's a good way to get unity. So it seems like that may apply to more than one area.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely see the difference. Like, you know, um, with my course, like the greeting cards course, I will like help people and give people tips on like the work that they create. And I definitely see like after like looking at a lot of work, like when you just add too many different styles of lettering, especially for greeting cards, it loses the message of the card. So the message gets lost because your eyes are just kind of going all over the page. So I guess like it's definitely a really good rule of thumb to stick to like a maximum of like at least four like lettering styles.
Yeah, and if you're a beginner getting into any of this, I think it's good to hear because sometimes like if you're learning software, you're learning a new style of art, there's so many things to learn and so many overwhelming options, but usually you want to keep it simple anyway. So if you just, kind of learn a core group of things, it's a lot less intimidating to approach
Yeah.
when you start small.
So I'm just adding the background here of the S. I'm just kind of seeing how it looks. I might just want to make the whole thing dark, but I'm going to hold off on that for now. I'm just going to do the bottom portions of the letters here. And again, we can go back and then fix it so I can erase this portion here. And this is all on a new layer because if I want to go back and edit some portion of it, I can easily do that.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just adding the darker green to the 3D portion, bottom portion of the letters. So any portion of the letter that's on the bottom side, we're just adding that dark green. And it's kind of like we're just coloring in a picture. We just want to give it that look.
Yeah, that
And
texture is working really well.
yeah, so far I'm like, oh, this is pretty cool. I've never done this before. So, and I also feel like greeting cards, when it comes to like Christmas cards, a lot of them feel like the ones that I've seen feel like somebody just drew them by hand or painted them by hand. They have that really like that feeling of like somebody just did that, not on the computer, I'll say. I'm just filling these in
Yeah.
here.
Gives it like a classic kind of authentic feel, which is nice.
Yeah, because sometimes I feel like the letters can be feel too like straight or computer generated. So I try to add in like those textures. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead. Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say Ruth has a question. I think it's kind of related to what we're talking about now. They say, so with Fresco, do you have to color the letter individually instead of dragging the color to fill the letter?
So you can drag to fill, but because I want that texture feel, I'm coloring it in individually. If I did like a let's say for example, if I grabbed the basic brush and then just kind of drew a circle here and then grab the fill here and I can fill it in that way. But like I said, like I want that texture, so I want it to look like kind of rough, like as if I was actually drawing on the page. But you can definitely do color fill for some of like your letters if you want it to look more smooth in terms of like the outlines and that sort of thing.
Yeah, so Fresco does have that capability. It also has some vector tools as well, but for this design, it's definitely that hand-drawn feel that you don't quite get with the fill bucket.
Yeah. So I have the background, or so far I'm gonna do, oops, the wrong brush. So that's like the more of that kind of feel. And you can see it changes the way it looks a bit.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna go back to my pencil and then fill it in here. So I'm trying to think of like a color to transition to on the side because I don't want it to be white. So I might have to think of a different color. We can use a different hue of this green. I'm just kind of going lightly on the edge of the letter. So as I'm going up like these curves, I'm slowly releasing pressure as I go up. And you can see like once we start kind of coloring it in, you'll see, oh, I need to fix this portion, like this portion of the end, I need to get rid of this line. But that's why we have everything on different layers so that we can easily edit and adjust.
When you're doing different styles, do you ever use clipping masks with your lettering?
Yeah, I do. I actually do a lot of clipping masks. So this one I'm not, but for the most part, I do use a lot of clipping masks. I'm gonna go back to my seasons here and then just make sure. Let's actually group our two seasons. So that is the outline, the main outline. I'm just gonna merge those. And I'm going to erase. Where is that outline? There it is. Okay, so I'm going to erase this portion of the end. And this portion of the end. And then just going back to my black, I'm just going to fix this here. Okay, so there we go. And going back to my colors, so we're going back to this dark green here. Again, selecting with dark green, just holding down on screen above the color. And I'm thinking like, how can I add a different color to the side of the season? So on that, the bottom part is that dark green, but I'm thinking maybe it should be maybe a lighter green. So I'm going to go into my color wheel and kind of drag it upwards just to see what it would look like. I'm just going to see how that would look. Okay, I think I'm going to use that color. So essentially, I just kind of dragged I used this color wheel and I pulled up the circle here to kind of make it a little bit in between this dark green and then the regular green we already have on the screen. And then I'm going to add it to the side of and it might be too light, but we can see as we go. So again, I'm just kind of zooming in, zooming out. And I'm going to undo that. I think I'm going to make it a little bit lighter. I'm going to go up a tad bit more. And again, before I do that, I forgot. Let me create a new layer and let's put that as a new layer actually.
Do you usually keep your layers pretty organized? Are you someone who likes a lot of organization there?
No, I'm not organized at all. I'm not organized at all.
I feel like that's the majority of people I ask that to. It's just like, not so
Oh
much.
yeah, I'm horrible. Like my husband's a programmer and like he is the most organized person. So sometimes I'll do design work for him and I'll give him my Photoshop file and he gets so mad at me because my layers are never organized.
What is this?
Yeah, he's like, you need to label your layers, and I will do it for work. Honestly, like if I
Yeah.
have like a project, you will bet for sure I'm gonna make sure they're organized. But like when I'm doing stuff for myself, I'm not really super organized with it.
I've kind of changed between the two. Like if I show you one of my Photoshop files from, I don't know, like 2015, 2016 or something,
Yeah.
it's pretty horrific. It's just like layer 102, layer 103,
Oh
copy,
my gosh.
copy. But nowadays I'm actually pretty organized with it. It makes life a bit
Oh
easier, but
yeah.
it can get out of
Yeah.
control.
Oh yeah. You could definitely get out of control. I need to get better at that for sure. But I feel like because I'm not always an illustrator, I guess my layering in like and Fresco is not like the organization is not very good. Um, Maybe it is. I don't know. This is just like it works for me.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
yeah, so I don't know. I guess it just depends on from person to person, like those because I know for sure, like definitely, being organized the layers does help, especially in if you're using Photoshop or Adobe Illustrator. That is definitely important for me. I've noticed like if I make sure that I um, am organized, it really does make a difference in my process because I feel like I can have way more layers whenever I'm working in Illustrator or Photoshop.
Yeah. Yeah, it makes sense. At a certain point, I definitely have to like name them and group them. Otherwise, once it gets to a certain point, it's like I can't really operate anymore. I'm like, okay, I don't know where anything is, and there's too many. I just got to take like 5 minutes to clean this up.
To organize it, yeah. Okay, so for the most part, I have seasons done. What I'm going to do is actually, just to kind of get a better idea of what I'm doing, I'm going to my bottom layer here and I want to fill it. Actually, I'm going to create a new layer above that one. And I think I want to fill it with a light yellowish color. So I have one saved here. And in case anybody wants to know the RGB, it is 255, 249, and 222 for the background color. So I'm just going to go ahead and drop it into the background. I'm going to make it a pixel. And so that will be my background. And then just going back upwards, I'm going to create a new layer. And let's grab that red and start filling in, oops, going back to our pencil, filling in the greetings. Maybe if we have enough time too, we can animate the reindeer at the top. That would be fun.
Also, we have a question in chat that I almost overlooked here. This is from Alexandra. When you create cards, do you have any ideas for the project beforehand, or do you come up with the ideas while designing?
So if I'm creating greeting cards for myself, I kind of set my own guidelines, but for the most part, whenever you're working with a greeting card company, I would say they usually have guidelines and they usually have a list of messages or genres that they want to cover. And they generally know their audience better than, we do. So because, they've been in the greeting card industry so long, they already kind of have an idea for who their audience is. And a lot of these greeting card companies are very specific as to who their audience is. So they will definitely kind of give you some sort of like outline of what they're looking for. They'll let you know, like, this is their audience, keep that in mind. These are the people that you want to appeal to. So your design should reflect that. So normally I do have like some sort of like, outline as to what the client is looking for. But if I'm doing it for myself, I'll kind of create what I think I would like or what I think my mom or my sisters would like. Because also another fun fact about the greeting card industry is that most greeting card purchasers are women. So that's another thing. So you try to, like for me, I know that I'm always trying to appeal to like my audience is like my sisters and my mom. I think like, oh, what would they like? And what would I like to see at a store? So yeah, that's like when in terms of like designing greeting cards, I'll think of that. But for the most part, yeah, I would say like these greeting card companies have a really good idea of what they want and what they're looking for.
Yeah, when you say you do these freelance commissions and stuff for these companies, do they ever buy original designs, or is it all kind of commission based?
It's all royalty based. So I will essentially it's licensing. So you're just licensing your artwork to these greeting card companies. That's like to me, that's like the optimal way to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're licensing your design. You're essentially saying like, hey, I'm renting this design to you for this amount of time. As long as you're selling it at your stores or on your website, I get a percentage of sales, which are called royalties. And royalties, oh my gosh, I'm gonna like forget the exact number, but there's a certain percentage that normally you get for greeting cards in royalties, and they give you that money or the royalties each month depending on how many cards you sell. So let's say you sell like 100, you'll get that percentage of money each month depending on the contract that you signed and how much percentage in royalties you're supposed to get on that card. And it's a great way to make passive income. You can license your designs. It's not only for greeting cards, you can license your designs for patterns, or let's say, I forgot what it's called, but like planners. You can license your designs in planners. So if you create a really good design, a client might just have that design up for a really long time, and you can be making a lot, consistent money on it. I was working with this brand, and they had told me that they had an artist, not like a lettering artist, but actually like an illustrator, a girl that painted by hand, and that she had been with the company for so long. She was like making like thousands of dollars a month all on licensing off of her designs.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I think it's a great way to make passive income. I think if you can kind of like get into the industry, like I always recommend it. It's just a matter of like finding the clients and stuff.
It's interesting that it's so royalty based like that, which is really cool. Is it ever like exclusive licensing for these companies?
Yes, and that's something I don't recommend because essentially what the company is stating is that like, hey, I only want you to create designs for me. And sometimes they only want like a few designs a year. And at that point, if you're exclusively designing for them and other card companies reach out to you to license your designs, you have to say no. So I don't necessarily like recommend that. I honestly recommend saying like, if somebody wants you exclusively, it's probably not a good idea, because you're kind of putting yourself in a place where you can't license your designs to other companies and you can't grow. And for the most part, what I've seen that's fair is working with a brand that says, hey, we can license your designs, but you cannot license this specific design to somebody else. And I think that's more fair, honestly.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's like, it's a lot of things with that industry.
Yeah, it's always a lot of the business side stuff to learn for sure.
Mm-hmm.
If people wanted to get into that kind of work, how would you recommend they go about finding these companies or having these companies find them? Are there straightforward contacts they can message, or is it kind of like finding certain ADs information?
Yeah, so I would say like one of the biggest places that I find is if you go to an easy way to find clients or people that license. It takes a lot of research, but if you go to like stationery show websites, you'll find companies that are visiting the stationery show, and normally they're like greeting card companies or planner companies or pattern companies that sell like Christmas wrapping paper. And if that's the case, like you should go to their website and see if they are companies that license designs, because normally they're going to these stationery shows or these art shows to see what designs they want to license. And I've found companies like that where I've like personally reached out to and like send them my portfolio and like say these designs are available for licensing. So that's one way to do it. And like in the course that I just did this year, it was essentially that, like, putting together a portfolio, because before you actually reach out to these companies, what I honestly recommend is having a portfolio of designs that are available for licensing, because you kind of have this like one chance to be like, hey, here's my designs. Like, would you guys be interested in licensing these designs? And normally these companies want, like, sometimes they want a collection that is cohesive. So like, let's say it's Target, they want a like Christmas collection for like their like blankets. I don't know. So you want to make a cohesive collection. Or some brands, another thing is like, you shouldn't just reach out to any old company and send your designs, because maybe your designs don't work for them and maybe you need to adjust your designs to better fit their brand. So yeah, there's a lot, I would say. But I would definitely say, like, it doesn't hurt to reach out to these brands. I would just say be prepared, understand you should really do research on the brand before you actually reach out to them.
Yeah, that's great advice. Definitely a lot of stuff to learn, but it's good to kind of know how people can get, look into that initially.
Yeah.
I think that's great advice in general, is the sort of targeting your portfolio or knowing the companies you're applying to. I think that's great advice across like kind of all art industries.
Yeah, I mean, definitely, like, I've learned from, experience that, people, companies telling me like, hey, oh, by the way, I did a 3D mask here. So I just created a new layer above here and then just clicked this little icon here to create 3D mask. And I grabbed the dark red and I'm just gonna kind of add some shadow, like it's the ribbon. But yeah, like I've had that experience where people have told me like, hey, you really should be prepared before you like pitch to the client. You really should have that stuff ready, and you should really know the client you're pitching to, because these brands will know immediately if you're just, just immediately just kind of emailing them.
Yeah. Also, that's a great use for a clipping mask. So now you don't really have to worry about coloring inside the lines for that same stroke.
Yeah. So I'm just
you've already got the texture there.
Yeah, I was thinking that too. Like the top part, it was a little bit harder to get a clipping mask because it was not filled in. It was just the outline. But this one, we can do it.
Also, just a heads up, we are winding down towards the last few minutes of our stream here. So also, if anyone has any final questions in chat, let us know.
And we could finish this tomorrow. We're actually almost done with it. So
yeah, it's coming together really well, especially like the shading that you're adding right now.
Thank you. Yeah, it's just a lot. It takes a lot of time. Let me see if I add it on this side. And you can kind of play around with like the areas that you want to add that shadow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the texture's working really well too. It definitely has a very convincing, like, traditional look to it. I certainly wouldn't think this looks, very, very digital at a glance.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I like the way it's coming off. I might like change the color, because I'm telling you, every time I do this, I'm always adjusting as I go, but I might change the color of this portion, but I'm going to think about it. Okay, so we have a couple of minutes left. I'm going to continue. If you guys are just tuning in at the very end, but I'm just finishing coloring it in. I'm just adding the color and coloring it in below my layer. So below the black outline layers, I'm just coloring in the letters that way. And I'm going to grab this gold portion here. I'm going to get a new layer again and just fill in these little sparkly portions.
All right, so this is probably a good time to call it. If anyone's just tuning in, if you want to kind of tell them what we have in store tomorrow and where they can find you on social media.
Yeah, so tomorrow we will finish up the design. So we'll finish up adding color to it. And then we will add a little section that says from the name of the person or you. And then we will add, so that will be the main card that you can send digitally to friends, family, clients. And then I'll show you how we can transition this card into a photo card. So if you want to add a little photo of you and your family in there, we can do that as well. That way you have both options. And then maybe if we have time, we can animate the reindeer. I'm going to see, hopefully we can have enough time for that.
That'd be
So
cool.
yeah, that's it. Yeah, and you guys can find me on Instagram at Threeologie. And if you guys have any questions or want to share with me the work that you created today, feel free to send it my way.
All right. Well, Natalie, thanks so much for joining us. And chat, thank you so much for tuning in too. We will be back tomorrow. Stay tuned for Andrew Hockrattle with the Illustrator Daily Creative Challenge. Thanks, everybody. See you next time.
Thank you. Bye.